as we know that we have these problems, the two problems in Indonesia, and now in the next 20 minutes, I would like to discuss a little about those things. COVID-19. Well, regarding these two diseases, several issues need to be paid attention to. That is, there is co-occurrence of these two diseases in some regions, and there are similarities in the clinical and laboratory parameters. And in some regions also, these two diseases share the same populations at risk, especially those with comorbidities, and both may progress to devastating condition. And they have impacts in multiple sectors beyond health. And researchers are now ongoing to pursue strategies and tools for prevention and treatment to contain this disease. These are the structural differences between SARS-CoV-2 and dengue virus. SARS-CoV-2 belongs to Coronaviridae family and the dengue Flaviviridae, and the diameter is much bigger. So SARS-CoV-2 has 65 to 125 nanometer in diameter in comparison to dengue that is only 15 nanometer, and both have genetic materials of single-stranded RNA. The structural protein, it has S-glycoprotein, envelope, membrane glycoprotein, and nucleocapsid protein, while the dengue has nucleocapsid, protein, membrane, glycoprotein, and envelope. The characteristics findings are there are crown-like spikes on its surface. Those spikes are used to attach to the target organ of the host. And another issue is that the most important part, as has been explained earlier, is the NS1 protein for dengue virus. And this virus is attached to our ACE2 receptor. This is the front view and the second view. And what happens after this, that in many organs, we have these receptors, especially in the nasopharyngeal, and the lung, and the liver, and the kidney. But we also have soluble spike ACE receptor, where the spike proteins can attach to. And this is the reason why we have, in addition to wear face mask, we also need to keep our cleanliness of the hands and not to touch our organs with mucosal membrane. This is the pathogenesis that after entering the respiratory tract, this virus binds to ACE2 receptor, and then the viral envelope protein fused with the cell membrane, and after that it is followed by release of viral RNA into the cytoplasm and is translated into structural proteins and polyproteins. Then polymerase protein of this virus produce messenger RNAs and that are translated into viral proteins. Viral proteins and RNAs are assembled into virion in the endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi, and then transported via vesicles and then released out of the cell, and the first viremia happens. After this, the virus presented is engulfed by our APC cells, and our APC cells process the viral protein and expose the viral peptides on the cell surface, where it is recognized by T helper cells, and which stimulate humoral immunity and cellular immunity. Successful immune response will neutralize the virus. That means the body can clear the virus. But unsuccessful immune response at this stage will further stimulate cellular immunity and chemokine production, and this will be followed by further immune activation. Further stimulation of immune system is marked by reduced CD4 and CD8, although they are excessively activated, and because the activation is going through all the time, cytokine is produced abundantly, and a cytokine storm occurs with a known mechanism, and we can calculate from the peripheral blood examination that there are decreased lymphocyte to neutrophil ratio, because there is a reduction of CD4 and CD8, but increased cytokine, several cytokines, especially IL-1B, IL-6, TNF-alpha, and others, resulting in hyperinflammation in the body, systemic inflammation, and then it causes several immune damages in our organs, especially in the capillary, and also in the arteries, and also in the muscles, where the immune system and immune cytokines attacks. And it also triggers coagulation, and the body will have coagulopathy with increased D-dimer 3 to 4 times or higher, and increase also in prothrombin time. And at this stage also we have endothelitis that may cause obstruction. It can cause microvessel dysfunction, causing the microangiopathy, but also macroangiopathy, like plaque and blockage of several big arteries in the heart. So we have these 3 phases altogether. So the disease manifestation divided into stage 1, which is an early infection. Stage 2, this is pulmonary phase, which is divided into to A and to B, and stage 3, where the hyperinflammation phase occurs. We can see here that in the first stage, the host has mild constitutional symptoms, and also the clinical stage is marked by lymphopenia, increased prothrombin time, increased D-dimer. But entering the stage 2, there is a shortness of breath because the alveoli are filled with some exudation due to the immune activity, and we can find here abnormal chest imaging, and we also have transaminitis, that is increase of the liver enzymes, and low or to normal procalcitonin. If this inflammation continues to progress, the patient will enter the ARDS, or series of systemic inflammatory response syndrome, or shock. It can be due to the dysfunction of the vasculature of the body or cardiac value. So this is the natural cause of the COVID-19, and we can remember here the death of the patient occurred not due to the virus, but it is due to the host inflammatory response. What about the dengue fever? I just want to speak at a glance, quick. The dengue invades the local matches and multiply there. And after multiplication, it is released to the circulation, the first viremia. And then secondly, infected cells migrate to lymph nodes where monocytes and macrophages are recruited. Then infection amplified here and disseminated through the lymphatic system, causing the primary viremia. And then in the circulation, this will find more cells in the body, and it may disturb the coagulation as well as the vasculature permeability. Then the fifth step is there is a vascular leakage that causes the decreased blood volume and low blood pressure because of, and it will be followed by insufficient supply of blood and oxygen. And dengue also infects bone marrow so that the bone marrow cannot produce sufficient platelets. And yes, this immune system actually may clear the virus, but the deterioration of the body is not caused directly by the virus, but due to this magnified immune system. So these factors that determines the cause of disease is the first is infection, where it can be low or non-viremia, moderate or high. The low viremia will cause subclinical disease here. So the infection is localized and the patient can be cured within a short period, or moderate, developing into the dengue fever, or high, in which the patient develop high viremia with several devastating conditions. So, and the other factors that determine the course of disease, there is a cascade of several occurrence. It depends first on the primary or the secondary infection. The primary infection may induce the primary response, but the secondary infection may induce more immune system, as has been explained by Dr. Martin Hibbert. Then the second determining factor is whether the vascular system is damaged or not. So the vascular or cell-mediated vascular pathology, where there is a leakage of the body fluid and blood. And the third aspect that also determines the cause of disease is the presence of neutralizing antibodies. I think it has been explained widely that if the patient has pre-existing antibodies that can neutralize the virus, the virus will be cleared. But if it is non-neutralizing, so several other situation or aspects can occur, such as ADE that is discussed just now. So this is the clinical course of the dengue illnesses. There are 5 points. The day of illness, temperature, potential clinical issues, laboratory changes, and serology and virology. It can stop here in the febrile phase, but it can progress to critical or clinical phase, where the complications may occur in the form of shock or bleeding or organ impairment. But if the body can successfully overcome the disease, the patient will recover. Also, there is some edema in the lung and also in the peripheral tissue, and followed by increase of platelet and antibody. And it was shown by Dr. Martin Hibbert that most patients actually don't have warning signs. A great percentage of the patient don't show any warning sign. And what are the warning signs actually? This is the 3 important warning signs. That is the fall in arterial blood pressure or hypotension and shock, hemorrhagic manifestations, and also organ improvement, especially the liver. There is the liver and also the splenic the splenic vein will be filled with too much volume here, and there is also an increase of AST and ALT higher than 1,000. Those are the 3 warnings that may be used to monitor for early warning system. So what are the similarities between dengue fever and COVID-19? This is the coagulation abnormalities and between dengue and uh, uh, COVID-19, which I will talk about later. But actually, this has similar pathophysiological similarities between these two diseases. Uh, there are three major similarities, that is plasma leakage, thrombocytopenia, and coagulopathy. As we also know, to a certain extent, dengue also has this. But COVID-19 has also vascular permeability in this regard. And what are the differences in clinical manifestations between these two diseases? What about fever? There is no specific pattern of fever in COVID-19, and usually the effervescence occur after 6 days of illness. But in dengue infection, fever is the dominant symptom. It has a form or pattern of saddleback fever, and the headache is higher in dengue fever, in dengue infection, and moderately or mildly experienced by COVID-19. The myalgia is comparable, 15% and 12, and the cough is more. It can also found in dengue infection, but it is a prominent symptom in COVID because it attacks primarily the lung. And there's dyspnea because the target or the primary target organ is the lung, so the dyspnea occurs much higher in COVID-19 in comparison to dengue infection. And the diarrhea, it also occurs in COVID-19, but occasionally it also happens in dengue infection. And the abdominal pain, in contrast to dengue fever, the COVID-19 has few symptoms with gastrointestinal problems like abdominal pain and vomiting. But in dengue, the abdominal pain is higher in frequency and also the vomiting. What about the cutaneous manifestation? Dengue has more features: skin flushing that blanches on pressure, petechian, and also convalescent rest. But in dengue, sometimes we also have this kind of symptoms and signs like erythematous rash, urticaria, and also some vesicles. And what are the comparison? If we can see that both diseases also have kidney involvement as a target organ. Here, COVID-19 has kidney failure, and here, and it has been reported that the cause of mortality is predominantly due to the renal failure, in addition to septicemia and also ARDS. But in dengue, also dengue has acute dengue-associated acute kidney function, as has been reported here. So they also share the same pathogenesis and target organs. And what are the laboratory findings? The thrombocytopenia is more significant in dengue infection, but less significant in COVID-19. And for leukopenia, I think there is comparable frequencies between COVID-19 and dengue infection. The lymphopenia also comparable between these two infections. Increased ALT occurs higher in dengue infection in comparison to COVID-19, and similarly the ALT and the D-dimer is higher here in COVID-19, but there is a wide range in dengue infection. And going further to pro-inflammatory markers, there are similarities and differences between the cytokine storm in the acute dengue and COVID-19. We can see the graph, the red line is for dengue, the dengue patient who deceased. Then the second is pneumonia, and the third is mild COVID-19, and the fourth and the fifth is for dengue fever and dengue hemorrhagic fever. We can see here the patterns that most inflammatory markers increase in COVID-19, except interferon gamma. But patients who develop dengue fever also had high cytokine and chemokine levels here, most with very high interleukin 10 levels. So it is very interesting phenomenon that this study conclude that low interferon gamma response to SARS-CoV and high level of IL-10, which is an immunosuppressive cytokine in both diseases during early illness. This is likely to result in an altered antiviral response. This is a very interesting field to be explored, especially in area where these two diseases exist. So, with regard to immunological parameters, I think this slide shows further markers that can be used as predictors. Here, the dengue fever and COVID-19 share several important pro-inflammatory markers that can be used as predictors. We can see here elevated of IL-4, IL-6, particularly, and also TNF-alpha, interferon gamma, which is raised, and the others. And similarly, in COVID-19, those markers can be predicting the progression of non-severe to severe COVID-19. We can see here, and also I add the D-dimer, which is partly a coagulation parameter, but also a pro-inflammatory markers. This is also significantly increased and a good marker for the progression to severe level of COVID-19. As a conclusion, there is different pattern of clinical course between these two diseases. What about the organs affected and pathophysiological mechanisms? At early phases, these two diseases have different target organs because COVID-19 attacks organ with ACE2 receptors versus macrophages and reticuloendothelial pathways that is involved in the dengue infection. And also the organ and pathophysiological mechanisms similar at progression stages, moderate to severe. That is the dysregulation of immune system and the presence of cytokine, disruption of coagulation system, and vascular permeability. And those two diseases share also similar target organs. And those two diseases likely share similar predictors of progression to severity. I would recommend that in our region, especially in Southeast Asia and other countries of Asia, it's a good and important opportunity for us to study these two diseases because they may coexist, and some countries also have the same epidemiological pattern of this disease. So thank you very much.